Okay, looking at the microcontroller code for our project. Here on the Google page, I have the interface, which obviously it's just really talking to the microcontroller. The hardware handles all the other stuff. Here's the pseudo, the testing parameters for whether or not the code can do what it's supposed to do. Some of the functions that rely on external devices that weren't part of our individual blocks but were more features. As far as our requirements go, the functions exist, but they may not actually be functioning at the moment, but they will by Monday. So as you can see here, I put in these comment lines with the numbers that correspond to the code to help decipher this. So as we look at main, when it starts up, the first function or the first requirement here for the code is to run the initialization for all the different peripherals and timers and stuff. So it starts off doing UART, SPI, a timer counter, which is used for real-time clock, so we can kind of keep track of how, or the actual time it takes as we're recording data from our sensors. It initializes TWI or I2C, the two-wire interface. It turns on interrupts, which are needed for both the counter and TWI. Then it runs the initialization of two sensors currently, because that is what we have hooked up to it. There will be a third one added, but it initializes the sensors, initializes the SD card, and initializes the SRAM. And then there's vibratory feedback programmed for just to let the user know that the setup initialized. Also, these lines here control the LED for user feedback, so it'll blink red and then green, showing that everything completed. So looking back over here after the initialization, it's going to start recording data based on the condition. Currently that's just time. Eventually it will be set up to actually detect a body position that will initiate the start, but for testing purposes we just have it on a loop. So here's number 2. There's a light shows red for 2 seconds, showing that the shot's about ready to start, and then it goes green during the shot. The function here records the shot, which I'll scroll up to in the code here. There we go, record shot. Initializes a bunch of variables, starts getting data. Currently we're outputting it to the UART in kind of a user readable fashion for testing purposes, but eventually that will just be dumped directly into SRAM. The commented outlines here for the data do function, and they can write it into SRAM. They're just not in there at the moment as we're doing testing. Returns the number of records that were produced, and this is used to print out to show the frequency at which we're recording data in that 20 seconds. Vibrates twice here to show that the shot ended after the 20 seconds. Writes data to the SD card, currently just in raw data. It checks the voltage coming into VDD, which will also shut down this process if it drops too low, or even shut down the regulator eventually if it drops to a dangerously low level. Currently it's just delaying 10 seconds before it takes another shot. Again, that will be changed into a better system, or an overall system change, once we have good data coming out of all the sensors and we can actually predict the body position. But currently it's just looping, which it does there on the continue. Just loops back to the beginning. Everything below here currently isn't being run, but it's used for testing of the SRAM and testing of the SD card. I even have a little bit of a command line interface where I can send data via Bluetooth terminal to make it run certain functions. I was using that during testing. So all of this is still in here but not currently being executed. And so going back to look at this was the record shot and kind of what it was doing. Once the shot was done, it was written to SD card, system voltages will be checked, and wait for the next start condition, and loop back to number 2. I guess the one thing actually I forgot to add in here, which I guess I'll do live, is the sending of the data via Bluetooth. Oh, I lied. It's right there. All right. Via Bluetooth, which, as I said earlier, right now is in user-readable format, so we can see the data coming across the Bluetooth terminal, but will eventually just be raw data going to Brendan's analysis software. So that's all for now. Thank you.